I let my girlfriend's family mock me in Japanese for an entire meal, then shocked them with one sentence. My girlfriend, May, brought me to her traditional Japanese family's restaurant for the first time. I was nervous because she'd warned me they were old school and might not approve of her dating a white guy from Ohio. Just be yourself, she said, squeezing my hand as we walked through the door. And don't take anything personally if they seem distant. What they didn't know was that I'd spent 3 years teaching English in rural Japan after college, living with a host family who spoke zero English. But I kept that quiet because people always make assumptions when you mention Japan. The restaurant was beautiful. Traditional wooden tables, paper lanterns, the smell of miso and grilled fish filling the air. Her father, the head chef, barely looked up from his cutting board when May introduced us. Her mom bowed politely, but her smile never reached her eyes. "Welcome," she said in careful English. "Please sit." That's when I heard her uncle in the kitchen say in rapid Japanese, another clueless American. Probably thinks sushi comes from a gas station and sake is pronounced sake. I bit my tongue and smiled. During dinner, they spoke Japanese freely around me, thinking I couldn't understand a word. Her grandmother, a tiny woman with sharp eyes, said while passing tempura, "This boy has no respect. Look how he sits like he's at McDonald's." Her cousin, maybe 16, whispered to May's sister, "He's never worked a day in his life. Look at those soft hands. Probably lives in his parents' basement playing video games." I kept eating, nodding politely when anyone addressed me directly in English. But inside, I was taking mental notes of every insult. The katsu was incredible, though, perfectly crispy outside, tender inside. The worst came from her father. While preparing our second course, he told the whole family in Japanese, "May is throwing away everything we taught her for this lazy foreigner who will abandon her the moment things get difficult. She could have married Tanaka's son, a good Japanese boy with a future." Her mother nodded sadly. "These American boys, they think Japanese girls are toys. No commitment, no understanding of family honor." Her aunt chimed in, "He probably can't even pronounce her name correctly. Probably calls her May like the month." May looked frustrated, trying to include me in conversations that kept drifting back to rapid Japanese. She had no idea what they were really saying. "Is the food okay?" she asked, noticing my quiet mood. "It's incredible," I said honestly, because despite everything, the food was amazing. "Dad makes the best ramen in the city," she said proudly. "He's been perfecting the recipe for 20 years. Her father grunted from the kitchen, then muttered in Japanese, 20 years of work for this ungrateful girl to bring shame to our family." Then her 8-year-old brother, Kenji, spilled soy sauce all over his white school shirt and started crying. The adults were busy arguing about whether to call his parents, and May was in the bathroom. Without thinking, I knelt down next to him and said in fluent Japanese, "Daijobu, Kenji-kun. Accidents happen to everyone, even grown-ups. Let's clean this up together, okay? Your shirt will be good as new." The entire restaurant went dead silent. Every conversation stopped. Chopsticks froze midair. Her grandmother's mouth actually fell open. The uncle, who'd been washing dishes, dropped a plate. Her father slowly walked over from the kitchen, still holding his knife, and asked in perfect English, "How long were you planning to let us embarrass ourselves?" I stood up, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, "I've spent 3 years in Japan. Your food deserves respect." Her father processed this, then nodded slowly. 3 years teaching English. You figured it out fast." "Yes, sir." He wiped his hands on his apron. "Then you know our traditions. You know what it means to court a Japanese daughter." May tensed beside me. Her father continued, "The ramen you ate tonight took me 20 years to perfect. You think you can learn our ways? Prove it." He gestured to the kitchen. "Make me a bowl of ramen. Right now. If it's worthy, we talk. If it's garbage, you leave and don't come back." I headed toward the kitchen, but as I passed him, he whispered in Japanese, "The broth takes 6 hours. You have 20 minutes, and I already called Tanaka. He's on his way here to take Mei home." I had 20 minutes to do the impossible or lose her forever to the man her family actually wanted. The kitchen was spotless, everything in its place like a surgeon's operating room. 20 minutes. I could feel every second ticking away as I scanned the ingredients. Mei's father stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me. The rest of the family had gathered behind him, murmuring in Japanese about how this would end. Traditional tonkatsu ramen broth takes 6 hours minimum. The pork bones need to simmer until the marrow dissolves into the water, creating that creamy white color. You can't rush it. But I wasn't going to serve him garbage ramen just because I couldn't make what he asked for. That would be worse than walking away right now. My eyes landed on a large pot of his 6-hour broth simmering on the back burner. Then I saw it. Fresh ramen noodles in the cooler. Perfect cuts of chashu pork belly, soft boiled eggs already prepared. And that's when the solution hit me. I couldn't make ramen in 20 minutes, but I could make tsukmen. Tsukmen is cold dipping noodles served with an intensely flavored hot dipping sauce. It's actually harder to make well than regular ramen because the sauce has to be concentrated enough to flavor the cold noodles, but I could do it by using his broth as my base and building on it. It would show respect for his work while demonstrating my own skills. I moved fast. First, I ladled out about 2 cups of his precious broth into a small pot and cranked the heat. While that started reducing, I tasted it. Really tasted it. Pork bones, definitely. But there was something else. A depth that came from kombu seaweed and the subtle funk of dried sardines. This wasn't just good broth. This was masterpiece broth. My hands moved on autopilot from years of cooking. I grabbed soy sauce, mirin, and sake from the shelf, adding them to my reducing broth. The liquid bubbled and darkened, concentrating into something richer. I could feel everyone watching me through the kitchen door. Mei was wringing her hands. Her grandmother had this look on her face like she couldn't decide if she wanted me to succeed or fail. 15 minutes, her father said in Japanese, not to help me, but to remind me I was running out of time. I pulled the ramen noodles from the cooler and got a pot of water boiling. Found the bamboo shoots. Started slicing them thin. My knife work was clean, deliberate. That was something my host family in Japan had drilled into me. Respect the ingredients with your knife. Every cut should be intentional. The chashu pork was already cooked, but I needed to slice it. I grabbed the block from the fridge and started cutting. Not too thick, not too thin. Each piece had to have the right ratio of meat to fat. I could hear her father shift his weight. He was watching my knife technique. That's when I knew he was actually paying attention, not just waiting for me to fail. The dipping sauce was reducing nicely, getting syrupy and dark. I tasted it again. Good, but it needed brightness. I found fresh ginger and grated it in. A splash more mirin. Another taste. There. That was it. 10 minutes. I heard the front door chime. New voices in Japanese. Mei's voice got higher, more stressed. That had to be Tanaka and his son. Perfect timing. The noodles went into the boiling water. I stirred them gently, making sure they didn't stick. While they cooked, I started my plating. Found a nice rectangular plate for the cold noodles. A small, deep bowl for the dipping sauce. I pulled the soft-boiled eggs from their container and cut one perfectly in half. The yolk was that perfect jammy consistency. Good. I grabbed the nori seaweed sheets and cut them into rectangles. 5 minutes. The noodles were done. I shocked them in ice water, watching them firm up. Drained them. Started arranging everything on the plate. The cold noodles went down first, shaped into a neat nest. Then the chashu pork fanned out. The bamboo shoots. Half the egg yolk facing up. The nori leaning against the side. A sprinkle of sesame seeds. Some finely sliced scallions on top. The dipping sauce went into the small bowl. I added a few drops of sesame oil on top so it would shimmer. Placed it next to the noodles. 30 seconds. I wiped the edges of both plates clean. Checked everything one more time. Then I carried them out of the kitchen. The dining room had gotten crowded. May's whole family was there. And yeah, there was a new guy I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, expensive suit, perfect hair. He was sitting way too close to May, talking to her parents in rapid Japanese. This had to be Tanaka's son. He barely glanced at me when I walked past. I placed the tsukman in front of May's father. He looked down at it, then up at me. His expression didn't change. "This is not ramen," he said in Japanese. "No, sir," I replied in Japanese. "You asked for ramen in 20 minutes. That's impossible without disrespecting your ingredients in your broth, so I made tsukman using your broth as the base. This way, I can honor your work while showing you what I'm capable of." Tanaka's son actually laughed. He couldn't even follow simple instructions. Americans always have excuses. May's father picked up his chopsticks. The whole restaurant went silent again. You could hear the refrigerator humming in the back. He lifted some noodles, dipped them in the sauce, and ate them slowly. The silence stretched out. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. "The sauce has good depth," he finally said in Japanese. "The balance of soy, mirin, and sake is correct. The noodles are properly chilled and have good texture." He took another bite, this time with some pork. The ginger adds brightness that cuts through the richness. This shows understanding of flavor layering. He set down his chopsticks and looked at me. "But I asked for ramen." "You made tsukman." "Yes, sir. I told you the rules. Make ramen. If it's worthy, we talk. If it's garbage, you leave." I nodded. My heart was hammering in my chest. May looked like she was about to cry. "You failed the test," her father said. "Please leave my restaurant." That's when May exploded. She stood up so fast her chair fell backwards. "Are you kidding me right now?" She was switching between English and Japanese, her voice shaking. "I never asked for this. I never asked for you to test him like some kind of game show contestant. I'm 26 years old. I can date whoever I want." "May," her mother started. "No." May cut her off. "I'm done. If he's not good enough for you, then I'm not good enough for you either. We're leaving." She grabbed my hand and started pulling me toward the door. I'd never seen her like this. Her whole body was trembling. "Wait," came a soft voice. Her grandmother spoke up from the corner in Japanese. The boy showed cleverness. He understood the task was impossible, so he made something achievable rather than serving garbage just to follow orders. That takes wisdom. Adaptability matters more than blind obedience. My late husband used to say, "The bamboo that bends in the wind survives the storm." May's father turned to look at his mother. His jaw was tight. He also had the courage to speak Japanese after letting us embarrass ourselves all evening, the grandmother continued. He could have humiliated us the moment we started mocking him, but he showed restraint. That is also wisdom. Tanaka's son stood up, clearly feeling threatened by this turn of events. "With all due respect, Mrs. Nakamura, I've just been promoted to regional manager at my company. I can provide stability that May deserves. Security, a future with someone who understands our culture." He looked at me when he said that last part. Not uncertainty with someone who will always be an outsider. Before anyone could respond, little Kenji tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, I like him. He helped me when I spilled the soy sauce. He was nice to me when no one else was watching. He spoke to me like I mattered. Man, this kid. 8 years old, and he just gutted the whole room. May's father stood there looking between his mother, his son, and May, who still had her coat half on. You could see something working behind his eyes. Finally, he sighed. I propose a compromise, he said in English, for everyone's benefit. You can continue seeing May, but you must prove your commitment over the next 3 months. You will work at this restaurant twice a week. You will learn our standards. You will earn this family's trust through action, not words. I didn't hesitate. I accept. May squeezed my hands so tight, I thought she might break my fingers. Relief washed over her face. Tanaka's son wasn't having it. This is ridiculous. You're giving him special treatment because he pulled off one dish. I've known your family for 20 years. This isn't fair. May's uncle, the same one who'd made the first crack about me, stepped forward. Fairness is not the issue here. We were unkind. We judged without knowing. He turned to me and bowed slightly. I apologize for my rudeness. If you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach. The next 2 weeks were brutal. I worked my regular 9-to-5 office job, then showed up at the restaurant by 6 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday. They didn't go easy on me. My first shifts were all grunt work. Washing dishes, cleaning the grease traps, prepping vegetables, mountains of vegetables. I'd get home around midnight, collapse into bed, and do it again. My hands got cut up from the kitchen work. Burns from grabbing hot pans, blisters from the rough cleaning brushes. May kept telling me I didn't have to do this, but I did. This wasn't just about proving myself to her family anymore. I wanted to understand this place that meant so much to her. The restaurant itself was its own little world, built by May's grandfather in the 70s when he first immigrated. Every scratch on the wooden counter had a story. The smell of dashi broth was literally cooked into the walls. May's father ran it with this quiet intensity. Nothing was ever good enough. He'd redo entire batches of rice if the texture wasn't perfect. By my 3rd week, they started letting me do actual prep work, filleting fish under her uncle's supervision, making the tear sauce for the ramen. Her uncle was tough but fair. He'd correct my knife angle or show me how to tell when the dashi was done just by the smell. Little things you can't learn from YouTube. May's mother was the one who surprised me, though. She barely spoke, but she noticed everything. Like how I took my coffee, or how I was right-handed but cut vegetables left-handed because my right hand had tendinitis. One day I came in and she'd moved all the prep stations to better accommodate me. Didn't say anything about it, just did it. It was Thursday of my 3rd week when things got weird. May's father was obsessed with this online review that had popped up. Someone claiming the restaurant had gone downhill, saying the food quality dropped and the service was terrible. This will ruin us, he kept saying, refreshing the page on his phone. 20 years building our reputation. One review and people will believe it. The family was stressed. You could feel it in the kitchen. Everyone was quieter, moving faster, double-checking everything. The grandmother looked worried for the first time since I'd met her. I kept thinking about that review, though. Something felt off. That night after my shift, I went home and pulled it up on my laptop. Read it carefully. The person claimed they'd visited on a Tuesday 2 weeks ago. Mentioned specific dishes, unagi don, chicken katsu curry, and miso soup that was too salty. But here's the thing. The restaurant doesn't serve unagi don. They only make it Fridays and Saturdays when they can get fresh eel from their supplier. And they've never had chicken katsu curry on the menu. Ever. I checked the reviewer's profile. Same username had hit 3 other Japanese restaurants in the area within the same week. Same complaints, same vague criticisms. The next day, I came in early before my shift started. Found May's father in the back office still staring at his phone. I think the review is fake, I told him. Showed him what I'd found. He barely looked up. It doesn't matter if it's fake. The damage is done. People see 1 star and they don't come. Then we respond professionally. Point out the inconsistencies. That makes us look defensive. Or it makes you look like someone who cares about the truth. He finally looked at me. Really looked at me. You spent your night off investigating this? The review mentioned dishes from a Tuesday. I wasn't here. I was curious. Something shifted in his expression. He nodded slowly. Okay. Help me write a response. We spent the next hour crafting it, polite but firm, pointing out the factual errors, inviting the reviewer to return for a complimentary meal to address any genuine concerns. We posted it in both English and Japanese. Within a few hours, regular customers started commenting in support. People who had been coming for years. They called out the reviewer, left their own positive reviews. The tide turned. May's father sat back in his chair looking exhausted but relieved. Thank you, he said in Japanese. Then he did something unexpected. He started talking, really talking, about how his father had built this place from nothing. How they'd faced discrimination. People who didn't want a Japanese restaurant in the neighborhood. How his mother had worked 16-hour days to keep it running after his father died. How he grew up in this kitchen, learning to cook before he learned to read. I'm afraid of losing it, he admitted. Not just the business, the legacy, what my parents built. When May started dating someone who didn't understand Japanese culture, I thought. He trailed off. I thought I was losing her, too. You're not losing her, I said. She loves this place. She loves you. He nodded. Didn't say anything else. But something had changed between us. Saturday night hit us like a truck. One of their regular line cooks called in sick 40 minutes before dinner service. The restaurant was fully booked. Walk-ins already waiting. They were down a body in the kitchen and facing a nightmare. May's father was on the phone trying to find a replacement when her uncle turned to me. You know the appetizer station? I've watched you enough times. Then get back there. Don't screw up. I tied on an apron and jumped in. The tickets started coming immediately. Gyoza, edamame, ajidashi tofu, takoyaki. Orders flying in faster than I could think. But something clicked. All those weeks of prep work, watching the flow of the kitchen, understanding the timing, it all came together. Order fire. May's father called out. I grabbed 4 plates, started plating the gyoza, arranged them in a circle, dipping sauce in the center, garnish on top, slid them to the pass, moved to the next order. The kitchen was chaos, but controlled chaos. Everyone knew their role. 2 hours straight. My feet were killing me. My back ached, but I kept pace. The uncle was working next to me, and I caught him nodding a few times when I crimped the gyoza wrappers properly. When the rush finally died down around midnight, I was literally shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. May's father came over with 2 beers, handed me one. You kept up, he said simply. Barely. No, you kept up. He took a long drink. Tanaka's son has been calling May constantly, taking her to expensive restaurants, buying her gifts, trying to win her with money. I didn't know what to say to that. My daughter is not stupid, he continued. She sees what he's doing, but she won't be rude to him because our families have history. It puts her in a difficult position. We drank in silence for a minute. Then he added, you work hard. You respect this place. That matters more than money. The next day, May called me sounding stressed. I need to talk to you about Tanaka. My stomach dropped. Okay. He's being persistent. He keeps asking me out, sending flowers to my office. My parents think I should at least give him a chance because of the family friendship, but... She sighed. I don't want to. I want to be with you, but I don't want to cause problems between our families either. What do you want to do? I want to tell him no, clearly. But I'm worried it'll blow up into this whole thing. Then be direct, I said. Tell him you've made your choice. Be respectful, but firm. And whatever happens, I'll support you. She was quiet for a moment. You're not worried that he can offer me more? I'm worried every day, I admitted. But not about what he can offer. I'm worried I'm not enough for you. That's different. You're enough, she said softly. You're more than enough. The next week, May met Tanaka for coffee. She texted me right after. Did it? He took it okay, sort of. But a few days later, she told me what he'd actually said. That relationships with foreigners never last. That I'd get bored of trying to fit into her culture. That eventually I'd want someone who looked like me, talked like me, grew up like me. It got in her head. I could tell. She started asking weird questions like if I ever felt out of place with her family, if I missed dating people who understood American references, if I ever regretted taking on all this work for her. Never, I told her every time. But the doubt was there now. Then the restaurant hit a slow period. Late January, early February. It happens every year. Apparently, people are broke after the holidays. The weather is bad, so nobody wants to go out, but it still meant less money coming in. May's father was stressed. Started talking about cutting hours, maybe letting some staff go temporarily. My trial period was technically still going, and I knew I'd be the first to get cut. That's when I noticed their website. It looked like it was built in 2005 and never updated. No social media presence at all, not even a Facebook page. Let me help with your online presence, I offered. I used to do social media marketing before I went to teach in Japan. I can do it for free. May's father was skeptical. Social media is impersonal. People come here for the experience, the tradition. But May's mother surprised everyone. Other restaurants use it. Maybe we should try. So May and I spent the next few weeks building their online presence. We took photos of the food, good photos with proper lighting. We wrote posts about the daily specials, shared the restaurant's history, her grandfather's immigration story, the 20-year ramen broth recipe. I taught May's mom how to post to Instagram, showed her uncle how to respond to comments. We kept it authentic, not trying to be something they weren't, and slowly it started working. Younger customers started showing up saying they found the restaurant on Instagram. People would tag them in photos. The grandmother's story got shared a bunch, and suddenly we had people coming in specifically to meet her. Within a month, the weekday dinner rush picked back up. Not packed, but steady. May's father pulled me aside one night. I was wrong about the social media, he admitted. It's just meeting people where they already are, I said. No. He looked me in the eye. You found a way to honor our tradition while moving us forward. That's harder than it sounds. It felt like things were finally settling into a rhythm. Then the grandmother got sick. Pneumonia. They hospitalized her, and it got bad fast. May's whole family was camped out in the waiting room. The restaurant closed for 3 days, which almost never happened. You could feel the fear in everyone. May's father was a wreck. This was his mother, the woman who'd built the restaurant with his father, who'd held the family together after his dad died. Watching him sit in that hospital chair looking small and scared had broke something in me. I asked May's mother what I could do. Can I make anything? Bring anything? She loves my miso soup, she said quietly. But she can't have it in the hospital. The sodium. What if I made a low-sodium version? Just so she could taste it. May's mother taught me her recipe that night in the restaurant kitchen. We worked in silence, adjusting measurements, tasting, adjusting again. When we finished, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. You didn't have to do this. I know. The next day, I brought the soup to the hospital in a thermos. May's grandmother was awake but weak. I sat next to her bed. I made you something, I told her in Japanese. It's not as good as the real thing, but I hope it helps. She took a small sip, closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. You remind me of my husband, she said quietly. He wasn't Japanese either. He was Korean. My family hated him at first. Said terrible things, worse than what we said to you. I didn't know that. Nobody had ever mentioned it. This was just after the war, she continued. Japanese and Koreans, there was a lot of bad blood. But he loved me, and he proved himself every single day. Worked harder than anyone, never complained. She grabbed my hand with her frail one. He became the soul of our family. Made us better. Taught us that love is more important than tradition. She smiled weakly. My son forgot that lesson. I'm glad you reminded him. She recovered slowly over the next 2 weeks. When she finally came home, the family threw a small celebration at the restaurant. Nothing fancy, just family. May's father stood up and got everyone's attention. I want to apologize, he said, looking at me. I judged you unfairly from the start. I let my fear and my prejudice cloud my judgment. You've proven yourself in every way that matters. You work hard. You respect our traditions. You care for my daughter, and you made my mother smile when she was sick. I'm sorry I made you jump through hoops to earn something you already deserved, our respect. I felt May's hand tighten around mine. Her grandmother was wiping her eyes. Thank you for not giving up on us, her father continued. And thank you for teaching me that protecting tradition doesn't mean closing our hearts to change. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He bowed to me. A real bow, deep and respectful. I bowed back, probably not as gracefully, but I tried. There's one more thing, her father said. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. We'd like to offer you a permanent part-time position here. Actual pay this time. You've earned it. I accept, I said. I'd said those words to him once before in a much different context. This time, they meant something else entirely. May threw her arms around me right there in front of everyone. Her mother was smiling. Her uncle clapped me on the shoulder. Even Kenji was jumping up and down, excited that I was sticking around. Her father extended his hand. When I shook it, he pulled me into a hug. Welcome to the family, he said quietly in Japanese. You are always welcome. I was just too stubborn to see it.
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.